out to all of their plants, and they're in that process of that. He's going to share early wins and some of the use cases of Canary that they've already applied. I think what's really cool with them is early on, they kind of built representation at each plant, and they have routine meetings where they bring their consortium together and they collaborate across facilities. They share learnings, of how they've used the system, and then that way they can scale instead of recreating the wheel, right? If some plants solved a problem, let's just solve it everywhere. And they're doing a really great job of building that internal collaboration again. So collaborate with us, collaborate, with your providers, solution integrators, and then collaborate with each other, and you'll get great results. And then Kevin is with Ectobox, and they're going to, just share their work and some of the strategies and how they've been implementing Canary. So welcome to the stage, guys, and it's your show.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. We're going to tell a few stories, if you will, about enablement, or actually adoption and then enablement. My question is, James, how are we going to follow Alberto and Valentina? That was really good. Another good hand for Alberto and Valentina. Honestly, that was a really good presentation. So for us, just basic introductions. Yeah, you've got the con. Basic introductions. James will talk a little bit about Milliken itself. It's a really interesting company that we're working with. James himself started in the 90s as a process improvement engineer, then moved into software development, and then into project management, and then into implementations like this, and a project or product owner, and then you were in IT, and now I think he is really the bridge between IT and OT. That is really his role. Did I miss anything? Did you work in payroll at some point?
I did not. I wish I did, then I would be retired by now.
Okay.
But I am corporate IT, and I'm proud to be corporate IT. But I did come up from a plant, and so I would say, and we'll talk more about this later, but we're a manufacturing company that needs IT. So I consider myself more operations than IT. But
yeah, nice,
thank
good.
you for the intro.
I'm Kevin Jones at Ectobox. I lead a lot of the efforts at Ectobox. We're a data systems integrator. Based in Pittsburgh, I was lucky enough to drive 2.5 hours here rather than fly from Chile or a lot of other, Portugal, India, Belgium. A lot of people here from a lot of different places. So I guess this is kind of home, so welcome. Welcome to our home. It's fantastic to have you here. As a company, Ectobox is a data systems integrator. We help manufacturers get the value out of data to increase the performance of their plants and to get the return on their assets they've been spending using the data that they already have. And we talk with leaders about investments in digital transformation, and they're not getting the return on that data. We often talk with people in the plants about, I have data silos. I don't have the root cause analysis data from these multiple sources that I can pull together to do root cause analysis. And that's actually one of the topics we'll talk about here today. So we enable companies to really push the performance of their plants and their enterprise by unifying the data across the organization. So that's a lot of what we do. Again, we're going to talk about enablement or adoption and enablement. So with that said, then do you want to start to
Sure.
dive into it?
Sure. I'm going to say just a little bit about Milliken and who we are to begin with. While I'd love for you to all work for us and buy our products, it's not really about that, right? This is just to kind of explain who we are and what spaces we're in and so forth, and hopefully give some credibility to what we're going to speak to as well. So we are, again, a manufacturing company. I'm going to simplify some of the things that you see on the slide and say we basically have 4 divisions. We're into textiles, flooring, healthcare, and chemicals. Kind of diversified. We've been around since 1865. We started then from Seth Milliken, and we are still owned by the Milliken family, so we're a privately held company. Another thing I'm going to say is, while this wasn't really part of our selection process at the time, probably because we didn't know it, I really appreciated some of the things that Gary and Ed said yesterday about the company, and I think that Milliken's values and Canary's values are very closely aligned. And again, while we're a large company, we're also family owned and very values based. So we have about 70 locations, 7,000 associates. We're in 15 different countries. Within the U.S., we're mostly located in the Southeast, but we do have plants in Wisconsin, Massachusetts, and so forth as well. And again, we spoke already to the divisions that we have. We're not really a household name because we're not, for the most part, a final product. So in the plastics industry, we're used for clarifiers a lot. So we have a saying that, at least within the U.S., that you probably touch a Milliken product 50 times a day, and you don't even realize it. So again, we're probably not a name that you would recognize, but we do feel like we're in a lot of products that are ultimately used. And now the lights are going out. That's fun.
I swear your time's
Is my time up? I mean, wow. So as far as our journey goes, that's one way to pull. We talked about gong show or pulling the hook or whatever. As far as Milliken's journey, so we, from a historical point of view, at corporate IT at least, again, I'm corporate IT, we did not centralize and standardize on a historian. That was up to the plants. A lot of times a machine builder would come in and install something, and the plant might even have multiple historians. But corporate IT was not in the space of telling the plants what to do, right? But just like we've all learned IT, OT, separation and less of it these days, we've got to collaborate more. And what we were hearing from our plants is we would like to have more standard solutions. We would like help with things. We don't want to go off and do our own thing. And so starting in 2019, and as part of our greater digital transformation, we realized we got a lot of data out there. We're not collecting it. We do want to be data-driven, evidence-based culture. How do we accomplish that? And a key foundation of that was collect, store, and analyze. And so in 2019, we looked at multiple historians in this space. Maybe still in 2019, we weren't really looking at the total digital foundation that we are today. But we looked across multiple things to decide what is it that we needed and what was the right strategic long-term solution for us. So we wanted to have minimal IT support. We wanted a cost-affordable solution, right? You can have something that costs you $1 million a year, but if you don't earn $1 million a year off of it, you're not going to be able to continue to have that product. So we wanted to find something that could work for long-term, and we definitely wanted to enable our users. So again, we're a manufacturing company with an IT staff to support them, but we don't have enough IT people to support the plants at the level that we would really like in an ideal situation. So we do that by giving them the tools that they need to do their job. You've heard it from other speakers as well, so nothing particularly new there. We started with one plant in 2019. We're up to, I think, 15 to 20 plants now, and as said earlier, I think Russ said it, we intend to continue to roll out Canary across the company. We're in currently wave 3 implementations in 2025. I think I touched on most of these things already. Some of the things, again, the licensing cost of Canary was certainly an attractive thing, but this is not just choosing the cheapest option either. So licensing was helpful and attractive. The ability of Axiom to visualize things as a web-based tool, also very attractive. And the openness, the scalability, the performance of the system, these are all things that weighed into our decision. We also really appreciate the service and support that Canary has offered. Give a specific shout out to John, but everybody else has been super helpful as well. We've been dealing with some challenges lately with a specific implementation, but Canary support team has been super helpful. Steve has done a great job joining some of our Canary user forums that we have within the company. So just really appreciate all the support that we've gotten from Canary.
Before we go to the next, can you back up a bit, just a couple of thoughts. Yeah, the other direction. We also have found, we have some basic principles and some values in our company. And it's interesting that these values continue to align with Canary and with Milliken as well. I was thinking back to Ed and Gary talking beginning of yesterday about the culture and the values they have. And that culture, I think many of you probably know it already, but if you don't, that culture has found its way into the product that they've built, or it really has come up, that product has come up from that culture. And it's that second to last yellow bullet there, that open access. For us, that's huge. We don't do proprietary as a company. We look for open technology. We don't want Hotel California. You know those lyrics of Hotel California? You can always check in or check out.
I threatened him he can't sing, by the way.
Yeah, I could. Should I?
I'm just telling you again.
Okay.
They'll turn the lights out.
Oh, that's true. They will. Yeah. you can always check out, but you can never leave. That's the way some historians out there will treat the data. Bring it all in and it stays there. Canary's like, no, hey, great, get the performance, get the value, and use it in other tools. And so from our perspective, Canary, I'll say this a couple times later, Canary is that first step in that digital transformation. Overused phrase, but for us, it's a real phrase. Digital transformation. Moving from pieces of paper and spreadsheets to the cell phone era in manufacturing, really trying to transform how the business operates with data, that data that you walk around and step on and walk by every day. Let's get access to it. And so they've done a phenomenal job of starting that process with that first milestone, if you will, of doing that. But that's enabled because Canary has the right culture, open access, open technology, which is phenomenal.
And you're going to see it on this next slide too, but we very much believe in a modular architecture. And again, I do appreciate kind of Canary sticking to what their core technology is and just being open to be used in other tools, like Power BI and other things. So we'll see that more here in this next slide.
Exactly. So there's a lot of adoption in the company. James is going to get into that in some of the other slides here. This is our work to help them take that next step. So as an integrator, we like to help companies join multiple sources of data together, to connect those data silos, to take that, as one company in Bedford, Pennsylvania, which is an hour away from here, the wiggles and the wobbles of the machines, as he calls them. I mean, he's a real tech guy, but he calls them the wiggles and the wobbles of the machine. Let's connect that with other context. Then once you get that data context, it becomes information. Then you can make decisions based on that data and get insights. So we not only want to be data-driven, we want to be insight-driven. And this architecture is a basic event-driven architecture. Many know it as the UNS, the Unified Namespace. Lots of things for us to cover. Won't get into too many details, but the idea is connect at the edge, connect, collect, store, analyze, visualize. Those are the steps. So connect at the edge, convert that data to MQTT, Spark Plug B, goes into a data broker. And then at that point, that data can be very easily routed into Canary. Canary's already set up their collectors to be able to consume Spark Plug B data. You set up templates in your visualizations in Axiom, and you start to add more UDTs within Ignition, and those assets just start showing up in Canary. You don't even have to do anything. Phenomenal. It's amazing kinds of capabilities that I haven't seen in too many other products. We're also then connecting to their MES system, which is a Microsoft-based product, and combining that data. The problem to solve, that's really what matters here. The problem to solve in this plant, textile plant, big rolls, kind of like you can see in that image, the big rolls of fabric that are going through a process that is about half a football field long. Massive, massive machines. And they are adding fire retardant capabilities to it. They're adding stain resistance to it. It's what our clothes are made of. But in that process, they also have to make very specific colors. And so shade is an issue. But heat, temperature and pressure and chemicals can affect that shade. And so the process improvement engineers, the PIs, were having challenges, and they didn't have data to figure out where upstream did that happen. Did that happen at the beginning of this line, or was that in another process? Well, let's get data. Let's connect to the system. Let's connect to the equipment, store that data, start to analyze it, connect to the MES. What production order, what PO was this for? Who was the operator? Let's get all this other context and connect that together. That then enables us to take that next step. You've got Canary. Awesome. We're historizing data. You can do all this Axiom stuff. Awesome. Let's take that next step. And so that's what we've done here. There's a visualization later to show a little bit of the data and talk about the results, but that's really what we did here. Want to keep going?
Yeah, and I'll speak one
Use
thing
cases.
just real quick. Yeah, I'll show you use cases. But one thing that I really appreciate too about the Canary MQTT collector, and even now with OPC UA and path-based subscriptions, you can automatically, I think people have talked to it, but you can automatically pick up things without having to actually specifically add them into Canary. So that's super powerful and helpful.
Yes.
And we haven't just used Ignition here. We've done a couple of different things. We've also used Kepware and Top Server and so forth too. But we're just trying out different technologies to kind of figure out what is the right solution for us. And you guys have been helpful in guiding us towards some different options, that hearing our needs and guiding us towards what good solutions might be.
Yep, good points.
All right, so again, I guess corporate IT, I'm not in marketing. But it does definitely help with adoption to try to make sure that our plants and our management understands what the potential gains of putting in Canary, or what a digital transformation can do for you in general. So we have tried to work with our plants on what are some values, or what are some things that they've gotten out of the system. So the next few slides, and we're going to cover some of them pretty rapidly here, are just examples that our plants have actually put together on what benefits that they've realized from using Canary. So this is one of our plants in the flooring division. They put up a couple of screens out near one of the big non-woven lines that they have at this location. And what I really love about these screens too that we're showing right now is these were all plant-generated screens. So we have, and we're going to speak to this a little bit later, we have some training material. Obviously, Canary has a lot of good information as well through Canary Academy and YouTube videos and so forth. But again, we don't have the IT staff to support this. We want plants to be able to do things quickly. And so it's very important for us to have a tool that the plants can use to make their own visualizations, because they know the data and they know what can help them the most. We can help them if they need some C# scripting or whatever. Still not my greatest area, but ChatGPT is great. It can lie to you, but mostly it's great. So these are some screens that this plant's put together to help operators. It also helps with shift handover to have a log of what happened as far as stops the night before. So we use Canary events for that as well. I know I'm taking too much time on this, so I want to go through some of these rapidly. Again, I think pretty much every screen that we're going to show, one of them was actually made by Ectobox, but almost every screen we're going to show is plant-generated content with some training that we've provided. So this is from another finishing plant that we have, and I really appreciated a different plant within the company said, oh, this is exactly the screen I want to see. It has this, it has that, it has all the information that we might need. And what I also really like, and what helps us about having a standard, is for plants to share information between themselves as well. Just like Canary has a community site, we also use Teams for trying to share information between locations. And so it's been super, I don't know the word that I'm looking for. It's been rewarding to see our plants help each other towards this effort. So I think this was just another line, performance dashboard. Another thing we had in one of our textile plants, they had a system that collected data, but the reporting that it had was very hard coded, and they couldn't really do anything with it. And so what they did, and they really did this themselves with minimal assistance from our side, is they used the SQL collector within Canary to bring some of that data into Canary and then visualize it through Axiom. And of course, they can do other things with it as well. But again, this is kind of a foundational element to us in that we can get all the data that we might need that relates, that makes sense to put into Canary. We can put it there, and then we can use it in additional tools, join it with other things, and so forth. They also appreciated having the automated report capabilities. They send out emails. Going to skip that one. I will give Ectobox credit. They helped us with this particular screen that one of our chemical plants wanted to have when we set up that. So this is just showing some different reactors and more of a real-time view that's available. And then we're also, again, using it on TVs that we have throughout the plants. But this was a nice one. We're big into having team meetings, shift handovers, et cetera, in the morning. And to be able to visualize how well the machine ran overnight, to have some healthy competition between shifts, that's also something that's been very helpful. You can see we're still using a lot of paper processes there, but at least we're starting to move digital. I think I say it later, but I will say don't just digitize everything, right? This is also where you definitely want to involve the people and make decisions about what the right thing to do is. Don't just move it to digital to say you could do it. And now you can support AI, and that doesn't really drive value on its own, right? So make sure you're doing the right thing.
So a couple of questions for you as you go through some of these, especially on the user side. I know some of the people in the crowd here are looking to figure out, like, is Canary a good fit for us? And should we use that for a bunch of our plants? This ability to enable users to be able to create their screens, how big of an impact or a factor was that in the decision process for, Canary's a good fit for us?
Yeah, I mean, that was huge for us because, again, we've got a small IT staff. I don't know what our total IT footprint is right now. We got about 7,000 associates, and my team is 5 people. And I don't really do anything. I just indicate what needs to be done, and then other people actually make the work happen. So it was very important for us
Did you just admit that publicly?
I did. Yeah. That's right.
We got it on video. Now you definitely need to get a job in payroll.
Indeed. Yeah, but that was a super important thing for us. And being browser-based obviously was a big thing too. You don't have to install software, and the unlimited license nature of Canary. I mean, what we don't want to do, and what is a natural thing, is when you've got a product, you want to give people who might need it access to it. But at the same time, you have to be aware of cost. And so when you start saying, well, you can't have a license because I don't think you're going to use it enough, then you take away a tool that somebody could have used. So we really appreciate having unlimited licenses, having it browser-based, and having a tool that is pretty intuitive, that has some good training material that they can use to generate what they need.
And that was part of the corporate decision at some point it had to go above you to make that decision.
Yeah.
And those were the factors that really came into play. Cost, of course, but that was a big one. But
there's not anybody above me. What do you?
Yeah. That's right. Because you were in payroll.
Yeah. No, actually, I can't even take credit for the decision to go with Canary. I didn't join Milliken, actually. I started with Milliken. I left Milliken for a while. I didn't come back until 2020. But I would say everything that we have done, I feel good about the decision that was made.
It was Don's fault, right? It was your fault that it happened. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Awesome.
Yeah. So I think this was our last use case. One of our plants used Canary as well to look at vibration and so forth, and look for problems that they were having, and then reduce downtime basically through better preventive maintenance. We're also even tied to, in some plants, we're using integration with our CMMS to feed it with actual run hours and so forth from Canary as well. And again, that goes back to Canary being an open platform. All right, I think we're through our use cases now, and maybe now back to our...
Yeah, and just for sake of time, just very briefly, again, this is one of the visualizations that we created for that project, the very simplified architecture diagram you saw earlier, where we're connecting some silos of data using an MQTT data broker, making that data available. So this is Ignition, creating some screens. Things are kind of grainy here, small, all that kind of stuff. But the idea is to be able to compare production orders and how things are running, and then to be able to do some queries, dates, et cetera, to be able to understand what's going on between this production order and that production order, and then start to track down, do some other things to track down change of shade from one product to another, and what's going on, what was the cause, et cetera. Because sometimes they have to rework the product. Sometimes that whole roll, you've gone so red you can't go backwards. Too late. Okay, you got to scrap it. Now we got to start over. That's expensive. So they're really working to reduce that.
We'll have to multiple pass it and so forth. So that takes significant effort if we have to do that. And like I said, I mean, if we over diet or something, we can't get it back, right? So if we have to multiple pass it, it's wasted time. It's a lot of chemicals, especially if we're dealing with something that is flame retardant. That's not cheap fabric. So and not really something we could easily pass on to our customer, obviously. But anyway, that's super helpful.
And speaking with the PIs, the expected improvement's probably going to be around 15% at least to start with, and we would expect that to improve as they start to realize, hey, actually, can we have this and can we have that? So again, some of these screens can be done in Axiom, but we're pulling data from multiple sources, some of which Canary can't really work with, like SQL data, et cetera. So that's where we're doing this on a tool outside of it. One of the things that we then do based on our values, the same kind of culture, et cetera, the best solution we can put in place as an integrator is a solution that you, the end user, can take over at some point. Might not have the capabilities to do that now in Ignition, might not know Python, et cetera, but some of your team, depending on how many people you have, et cetera, can learn that kind of stuff, can pick it up, and should learn it. So many manufacturers have been giving away knowledge, sending away knowledge out to their integrators, so many vendors. That knowledge needs to come back in-house so that you have the capabilities to really drive your company forward. And so we're kind of enabling that. I mean, from a commercial perspective, well, let's do everything, but no, that's not the right thing. One of the values we have in our company, we have 3 primary values. One of them is do the right thing. And we've assigned superheroes to those values. And that superhero is Mr. Rogers. Fred Rogers, for people that haven't grown up in the US, who's a TV show host for kids, a kids show. The nicest guy ever. He's from Latrobe, which is not too far from here, Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and then spent a lot of time in Pittsburgh, where he filmed the Mr. Rogers show from the 70s to I think about 2000 or something. It was about 3 or 4 miles from my house in Pittsburgh. Phenomenal guy. I met him in person. One of those little summer college jobs you have, working at a record store. It's actually CDs. And in walks Mr. Rogers and is asking for some classical CD. And he was wearing a cardigan, and he was just as nice in person as he is on TV. Unbelievable. So he is one of my superheroes for do the right thing, because if there's anybody that's going to do the right thing, it's Mr. Rogers. And that's what Canary's doing as well. And I'm not getting paid by Mike or Don or Sean or Mark. Though, Mark, if you want to buy me a beer, I'm okay with that.
We were all for bottles of water. That was our compensation.
All right. Well, whatever. But the idea is that we can do these kinds of capabilities. So from my perspective, Canary is now becoming the foundation. Connect, collect, store, analyze with Axiom. Now let's go further. Let's build on top of that. And that's what we're doing with our architectures and with these other tools. Okay, I've spent too much time.
Well, I'm going to comment on that too. So about empowering users. So we've talked about empowering them to make their own visualizations, but I want to speak to this plant specifically as well. You guys came in, you looked at us, you did a feed survey with us.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You kind of, you want to talk about that process a little bit, and then I'll come back to the how you empowered.
It's in part of our enablement process, one of the other slides. The idea is let's engage the users, find out what they have. From our first question is, what's the problem to solve? Not, oh, it's technology, or, oh, I have a hammer, I'm going to go look for a nail. It's, what's the problem to solve? And then from there, we start to think about strategy, architecture, not just for the solution, but an architecture that can apply to the plant and eventually to the enterprise. And we're also talking about that. And then you start to get down to the details, and then you build the solution back up. But the feed survey is just an engagement to say, what's the problem to solve? What do you need? Let's talk about some of the details. Let's go through that whole process. Let's document that so that from a project and cost perspective, we can control the scope. Peak Director of Operations, scope, clarify, no change, which is what we need to do. Sometimes we need to go agile, but sometimes we need to go waterfall, for those of you who understand kind of these practices. And so that feed survey really helps us lock in on what the problem is to solve, what the solution is going to look like, clarify what the success, how that's going to be measured afterwards, and then lock us into doing the project. Did I touch on the point?
No, you're good. And I will say, sometimes I hate the question of what is your specific use case, because what I want is a solution that works for use cases I don't know right now. But you do definitely have to think about what some of your use cases are, right, to know what is success. And with this plan in particular, coming out of that, we identified one machine that they wanted to target. This plant had an older historian, but you had to remote desktop into one computer to be able to look at anything on it because it was so old. We didn't want to allow it on our main network and so forth. But where I was going back to empowering is, so we focused on that one machine, but we also gave the plant the tools that they could add additional machines, and that's what they have done. So we have given them some guidelines on how to do tag naming and so forth. We don't have a perfect process for tag naming either. So whoever has it in this room, please come see me, because I'll give you a bottle of water for it. But I just really appreciate, not only have plants been able to do visuals, they've been able to add new assets to their systems as well. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about organizing for success here. We talked about it earlier, but listen to your stakeholders. I'm going to tell my stupid story. There's a thing that's associated with Henry Ford, and it's probably not actually what Henry Ford said, but that if I asked the users what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Now, I don't like coming off as being arrogant or something and knowing more than our end users do, but what we hope is by working with integrators and by having, again, people who work across multiple plants, that we can help, we can hear what their problem is and then suggest a better solution than they might come up with on their own, hopefully. So we want to listen, though, is the first thing, right? What is your actual need, and then how can we meet that, whether it's Canary or some other tool? So we try to listen, we try to collaborate, we want to ask them questions to make sure that we totally understand. I love to tell me what you want, and then I'm going to write it all down. I'm going to put it in my own words. I'm going to write it up in Jira. Yes, we use Jira, lovely tool. And then I want to repeat it back to you to make sure that I understood what you're asking for. That's kind of my role within the company now, is to make sure that our users are getting what they want. Again, we already talked about making sure that we enable our users and empower them.
For the part about empower, I think that'll be kind of interesting to, I'm going to get to that playbook too, that's a key piece, but for the empower, when you were training the users, getting them into the point, to the point of being able to create their own screens, like, what was that like? How long did it take? We can talk about the playbook to get there, but how long did it take? Was it easy? Was it straightforward? Everybody's in a different space for technology and all that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I heard other people, somebody say earlier about IT and that Axiom was locked down on them or whatever. So we have AD groups set up, we give the right access and all that. So I think we're secure about how we do things, but we do try to be open about it. But yeah, our typical approach with training, we will, whenever we do a training session for a new plant that we're bringing online, we will invite other plants to join if they want to. We want to make sure that the plant that we're working on is the focus, but we want to invite those other plants. We typically record them. And basically, I don't think this is anything rocket science or something, but we will start by saying, okay, session one is, we'll just call them consumers or read-only users, and everybody should basically be in that class. We'll just show, hey, here's how you open something that's already a saved thing within Axiom. Maybe, change some things like changing your duration at the bottom of the trend chart and so forth. We use scripting a lot to give them some controls that they can use. So level 1 training is usually an hour to 2 hours. It just depends. We take a train the trainer approach as much as we can so that we train people within a plant, but we can't train every operator across every shift. We usually do the training remotely on Teams, but we will go on site if we need to. Just depends on what they want. But level 1 training is just kind of that read-only. How do I bring up something that I might need? Level 2 is how do I create things? And level 3 is kind of system admin and people who might add tags. Sometimes plants do that themselves. Sometimes they want us to do that. So we've got a help system where they can ask for new things. But our typical process then is anywhere from an hour to 4 hours is kind of our starting position. We also try to not overload people. So we will typically, when we do report writing training, we'll do a maybe 2-hour session, and then we'll follow that up in a couple of weeks. We want to get them in there playing around with things. I mean, I learn best myself by doing. So we got to give them some foundation, but then let them get into the system, let them use our training materials that we created, let them use Canary's training materials, and then follow that up with, okay, what questions did you have? What do you need to do? What haven't you been able to figure out? So that's our typical approach.
Let's move on to the playbook. I think that's a really key piece, and then I'll wrap it up here.
Yeah, and so our playbook, it includes multiple things, right? It includes standard training material so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. We've got logging documentation too on how we do things. Again, a lot of this references Canary material, but it's a lot of times it's specific to us and our use cases and our setups and so forth. So training material. We also have a PowerPoint with a bunch of reports that plants have made where we try to encourage plants to share report definitions. I want more portability between plants. We haven't really gotten there yet, but we're working on that. But that's kind of what our playbook is for. It's to help speed things up because we were definitely challenged with that. Do it faster, right? We want it faster. And the playbook is a big part to realizing that.
And it's, I think, an important piece for everybody to develop. And so some of you that are considering Canary, that's a really key piece to make the implementations and the scale much more successful. Are you okay with people asking you about that?
Sure.
If they give you a bottle of water?
Yeah, right. Okay, yes. Okay, cool. Maybe some food occasionally.
Okay, some food.
Yeah. No. Happy to engage. I mean, that's another thing that's great about talking to peers is to be able to get best practices from others. But yeah, I don't think there's anything magic or proprietary about that. Happy to talk about it.
Yeah, good. All right. Yeah. Anything else here at all?
I think on that one we're good.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Whoops, did I skip one?
No, I think that was pretty much it. We're pretty much at time.
Yeah,
Russ is going to give us the hook.
Yep. Turn off the lights again. Yeah, another thing, I mentioned it earlier, though. We have done things like team sharing and so forth, too. I really feel like a strong user community is really helpful for us and benefits what, I think we've probably already covered. So we're probably at.
Yeah, we found in a lot of the situations that 10 to 15% is usually one of the initial early improvements in any kind of situation, whether it's performance or quality, et cetera. And that seems to be true here, and we're going to be looking for and pushing for more. would you say that there's been significant? Have you guys been able to measure the benefit of having Canary adopted across all these plants? And
That's a good question, and I would say no, not really. I mean, we definitely have had use cases that have shown, financial benefits and so forth. And we know that we need to do things to be a company for another 100 years. But it has been hard to quantify some of that, right? So it's something we could definitely still improve. I'd be interested in anybody else's opinions there.
No
But
doubt about that.
Yeah.
So again, the real message to convey here is the adoption. Canary has worked out really well for Milliken, and we've seen it work really well. We brought it into a number of other companies. Again, we weren't responsible. Don was responsible maybe for bringing it into Milliken, but it's working out really well. And so then it's enabling the users. And then from our perspective, I put that into a different view. They've set the platform, they set the foundation, and now we're extending it. We're going even further to pull other data from other systems. And from my perspective then too, Canary ends up being a platform as an integrator to build other tools on top of. And that's where we are now building a tool called Vigil to be able to monitor solutions and provide what we think of as, in the maintenance world, condition-based monitoring, doing condition-based monitoring of the server, RAM, CPU, space, SQL Server, Canary. Is it receiving data? Is it missing tags for some reason because of some outside factor? Being able to monitor ignition, is ignition up and running? Being able to monitor a few other tools, MQTT data brokers. Because in some industries, like Milliken, data, the regulatory issues around environmental, you can't miss any data. You're only allowed to miss an hour of data out of the whole year or something, or per month.
Or you have to document everything.
And
I think it's 15 minutes.
And that's where sometimes people can get into a situation where they look back and say, oh crap, we're missing a week of data. Or I hope that auditor doesn't catch that one. Then it gets really interesting. And so we've built a tool to do that. And so if you're interested in talking about that, I'd really be interested in talking with you about, is this valuable? Can people use it? Would love to talk with you about that. So,
Yeah, and I just plug that by saying, I mean, the data being trustworthy is super important, right?
Okay. Yeah.
I will say one more final thing too. What's also been very rewarding for me throughout this process is going back to can you justify, can you demonstrate benefits? And again, we definitely have some, so don't take it the wrong way there. It's hard to put dollar figures on some of that. But the other thing that's been super helpful is projects have come around now, like an AI team project, and they needed data to make that happen. And we were like, okay, we've got a solution for you. Here's something we can already do. So it seems like all the things that we've been working on are kind of coming to fruition now. Some automation projects we wanted to do have been empowered by the work that we have done up till now. So it seems like it's building up on top of itself and has been really beneficial.
As ours.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I told you. Yep. I told you. All right.
Wait, don't run away. Don't run away. We got some questions to answer.
Okay. All right. I didn't know if I left time for questions.
Does anybody have a question? I think I can maybe take one or two questions here and keep us on. And these guys, believe it or not, they like to talk. So, grab them afterwards and they'll answer your questions as well. So.
Thank you. Quick question. How many tags do you ingest through MQTT Spark PB?
At this location, it's about 5,000 tags maybe that are on that one machine that's coming in through MQTT right now. There are a few others that we're using that, and we're pushing our MES data also into MQTT to be able to use in Canary or other streams. But yeah, we're not heavily using MQTT yet. We're still kind of getting started with that. But that's where we are right now with it. We're using OPC UA a lot more right now.
Yeah, we found, and this was, we've had these kind of conversations for some of their other plants too. Hey, let's just connect Canary, OPC UA, DA, whatever's there, and then as the needs develop, then we can start to add in bigger integrations and data brokers and that kind of stuff as well. So it's a progressive, stepwise process.
Else? All right, we're here.
Sorry. You're a great example, James, of how corporate IT should act, so thank you for this show. I mean, just a critical question is, you put Canary in the hands of your factories, but it's difficult to believe that engineers are always capable of finding the right UI and UX experience.
Right.
How do you deal with that? Because they know the data so well, they know the tool, they're engineers, but how do you make sure they're actually creating dashboards that look like something? Because you've been showing beautiful dashboards.
Yeah, it's definitely a problem, right? We try to give some guidelines. Again, we've tried to make, here's what other plants have done. And we don't want to force them necessarily down a path either. I've also been in a situation where 10 people created the same thing because they didn't know the thing existed. And so they created their own version of it. So don't have any magic to that point. Just do the best you can to share what things have been done by other plants. Comment when you can. There was a plant that put a visual of the actual plant on the screen and tried to then put where the sensors were and everything. It was the worst looking picture. Sorry to that plant. It gave them what they wanted. And sometimes too, I look at it as, you might have visuals that just need to be red, green, what do I need to see at a glance quickly, right? That goes back to SCADA and stuff. It depends on your audience as far as what you want to see. When you want to show to VPs of manufacturing or the CEO of the company, you want something that looks really impressive, but it's all about, does it deliver the value that the plant needs? But yeah, we have tried to give some standards and guidelines around that, but it's a pro and a con, right, of giving people open access to things. There will be things that don't conform, but you try to guide them as best you can.
Thank you.
Righty. I think these guys did a great job. Let's give them a round of applause.